Hello. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can, let us know. Welcome to week 6 of our poker Q&A. Yeah, you should be hearing me. If you're online and watching, do let us know if you can hear us. That'd be really helpful. Welcome. Let's just lean this up a bit more, and then we'll go back down to watch hands. This episode is about the types of poker players that you get at the table, and also how those types of players play. And we're going to talk about the 4 categories of types of poker players there are that you'll find at the table. And then towards the end, we're going to discuss how those players might be, or those type of characteristics might be reflected in our own personalities, and indeed how that works in the world of business or any world of work that you work in. These personalities are everywhere. And what type of personality are you? And maybe do you want to change that a bit? So poker there's a reflection of how the game of poker plays into the world of work, actually. We're going to start off by discussing the 4 different types of poker players there are, and then we're going to play a hand and show you the different ways that these 4 different types of players will play their hands. Okay, I'm just going to draw this down now, and you should be able to see this. So I've got a lovely hand drawn chart here. Okay, we're going to explain what all these different types of players are. You'll see the chart shows 4 different types of players. So there's a loose passive player, what we refer to as the amateur. There's the loose aggressive player, which we refer to as the maniac. There is the tight passive player, which we refer to as just tight. And then there's the tight aggressive player, which is solid. And we're all aspiring, really, to have our play fall within this green section, this leaf here. So we want to play tight aggressive. That's the most solid way to play the game of poker. Now, what do these terms really mean? Well, you can see what they mean by the charts on the bottom and the bottom of the side here. So the percentage of starting hands you play, if you play them all, right up here, that means you're as loose as can be, loosey-goosey. So you play all the hands available to you that you like the look of. If you play very few hands at all, right down here, that means you're tight. You're not loose, you're tight. So you choose a very thin selection of starting hands to play with. And so there's tight for the bottom 2, and there's loose for the top 2 here, okay? So if you play lots of hands, you are loose, okay? If you play very few hands, you are tight, okay? If you play 50% of your hands, you're in between a lot, which will be right in the centre here, okay? Hope you are all following. If you bet and raise a lot, by the size and frequency, the amount you bet and raise, if you do it all the time, that means you are aggressive. So you're on this side here. You are very aggressive. So you play all your hands, but you bet them and you raise them. That's a very key thing. Passive players tend to just call with their hands. They might call with lots of hands up here, or they might call with very few hands down here. Okay. And if you bet and raise very few of your hands, that would be down over this side here. That means you're just very, very passive. So passive means where you're just calling a lot, you're not making many raises or bets at all. We're trying to be a solid player. We want to be tight and aggressive, okay? So we're now going to play out a hand. Maybe take a snapshot of this. In future times, we're going to be far more advanced. We'll have this on the screen at all times. But take a snapshot of that. We'll send it around to everyone who's watched anyway if you want to have a request of a copy. So that's our chart, okay? We might leave that in the middle for a bit. Let's come down to the table. We're going to play out a hand. So in seat 1 on the dealer button here, we have our tight passive player, okay? Tight and passive. So this player doesn't play many hands because he's tight, or she is tight with how much he plays, and is passive, so just tends to call a lot, doesn't bet or raise their hands. The loose passive player is in seat 2. Loose and passive down here, okay? Hopefully you can see that. Loose and passive. Our loose passive player plays lots of hands, but doesn't bet them, okay? Just tends to call a lot. We have our loose aggressive player here. So loose aggressive in seat 3. Our loose aggressive player plays a huge amount of hands and plays them aggressively. The player bets them all the time. And our tight aggressive player, which is what we want to be, this is what we're looking to play like, our tight aggressive player is in seat 4, okay? Right, so I'm going to show you the hands now, okay, that they've got. So we'll start off with putting the blinds in. Small blind and a big blind. And then we've got, we'll start the button here. Better. So small blind, and we've got a big blind. We're the tight aggressive player in the big blind, okay? Comes to the player in seat number 3, the tight passive player. Our tight passive player has a pair of jacks, okay? It's been dealt a pair of jacks. Because the player is tight, the player only plays a very thin range of hands, only plays the best hands available. So he's going to play this hand, but the player is passive. The player is scared of what might happen. So in case anyone's got queens, kings, or aces, this player is tight and passive. They're just going to call with their pair of jacks. Comes round to our next player on the button. This player is loose and passive. This player has 5-4 of hearts, okay? This is a pretty average hand, but a loose player will always play this hand. Our tight player here won't play this hand, but the loose player will. And how will they play it? They'll play it passively. They will call. They won't just elect to raise. They won't elect to make any other players make a decision. They will just keep going with what's going on. They'll follow kind of what everyone else is doing. Comes around to our maniac, the exciting player. Our maniac is the loose aggressive player, okay? Our loose aggressive player has King 7 of spades. It's not a particularly great hand, but because he's a loose player, he's going to play it. He's got every right to play it, but he's going to play it aggressively. He's going to raise with this hand. He makes it 200 to go, okay? So let's look at this hand quickly. He's got King 7 of spades, he's loose and aggressive, he's raised. Our loose passive player would only have called with King 7 of spades, and our tight passive player would only have called because this one wouldn't have played the hand at all because they're tight, right? So King 7 of spades is not the kind of hand a tight player is going to play, but it is the kind of hand a loose player would play. So these two players up here are quite willing to play these kind of hands. Comes round to us. Interestingly, we've got the other two jacks. We also have jacks, okay? But we are a tight aggressive player. That's what we want to try and be. We want to try and be a tight aggressive player. We have a pair of jacks. How are we going to play this? Well, we're definitely going to play it. Even though we're a tight player, we're facing a raise. It's been raised to 200. We're tight, but we've got a good hand. But we're aggressive as well. Now, we want to raise because our hand, we feel like our hand may be the best hand available. But we're going to make it, say, 450. Okay, or let's make it 500 just to make it clear it all up. We make it 500. We're playing our hands aggressively, but we're selecting our hands carefully. Comes down to our tight passive player. Now notice he has the same hand as us, right? But both these hands have been played extremely differently so far. He's tight, he's facing a raise and a re-raise, but he's got jacks. It's a really good hand, but he's passive. He calls. Wants to see a flop. Passive player. Doesn't want to put any other players onto a decision, but wants to play the hand. Loose passive player obviously is going to play because he's got 2 cards that are suited. Any loose player is going to play this. This is not how you want to play. You do not want to be putting in 500 when the blinds are 25-50 in a 4-way pot where it's been raised and re-raised and called with 5-4 of hearts. It's loose and passive. It's not the best way to be playing your poker. Our loose aggressive player is finally, he's loose, he's aggressive, but he's not completely crazy. He's not going to raise again. He's just he's going to call the 500. Okay? So you can see how everyone here has paid the same price for their hands, but we're the only players who have defined our hand and where we are in the pot. We know that these players don't really have a very good hand because they haven't re-raised us, right? It's gone raise and we've raised again, but no one's raised us again. They've just called. They've passively called. And the loose aggressive players giving us a chance, okay? So we're going to deal the flop. The flop comes, which is the first 3 community cards, 7, 10, 3. The first player to act, all the chips coming in the middle. Our first player to act is the loose aggressive player, King 7 of spades. He's made a pair. He's got a pair of 7s. He is still losing, but he's made a pair, okay? Because he's loose and because he's aggressive, he's going to put a bet in. He bets 300. Comes to us. We should be very confident that we're winning at this stage because we know this player is loose and aggressive. We know he's going to play a wide range of hands, and we know that he's going to play them aggressively. We can come to re-raise. We make it 800 with our pair of jacks. We have an overpair to the board. We should be winning. We feel like we're winning. There's no reason that we shouldn't be. Comes to our tight passive player who has the same hand as us. Okay, he is now folding. It's gone bet raise on the flop. He's basically given up 500 without giving himself a chance to win at any stage. He never raised. He never bet. He never did anything positive or aggressive to play. He just played tightly and passively. And as a result, he's just gifted 500 to another player with the same hand. Folds. Comes to our loose passive player. Loose and passive. That means they play a lot of hands and they play them passively. What's the flop come? 10, 7, 3. He has 5, 4. If a 6 comes, this player will make a straight. That is enough for a loose passive player to be in the hand. Loose passive player calls. Let's put some more money into the pot without any idea where we are in the hand and just hope and pray that we hit straight. That is not how you want to play poker, but there are people out there who do. Loose aggressive player decides, I'm not having it, I'm going to play aggressively, I'm going to raise. And he sticks in 2,000. It ends up being a 3-way all-in because we're happy that we're winning. Our loose passive player doesn't want to give up on the hand either. He puts all his money in, and our loose aggressive player is never going to give up because they're a maniac. You can see how easily all the money goes in the middle just because there are different selections of players at the table. If we had a tight aggressive player in every seat, this hand plays out completely differently. If we have loose passive players in every seat, it plays out differently. We've got one of each. The tight passive player's got away cheap. Well, not cheap, it's still giving away 500 with the same hand. So we'll see what the turn delivers. Comes an 8, and the river comes an ace. And our pair of jacks wins. Playing loose and aggressively has not helped this player in this situation, and playing loose and passively hasn't helped this player. Now, by no means whatsoever is that how every hand poker is going to run out when you're playing, okay? There will be loose passive players who will make a hand and you will lose to them and you'll be rather upset by it. There will be situations where you play tight and passively and you just kind of bleed money and you don't really go home winning anything, but you don't lose anything. And there are times where you'll play like a maniac and you'll win loads of money, but more often than not, playing loose and aggressively, you're going to end up losing a lot of money. Now, the interesting thing, we're going to move these chips out of the way now. The interesting thing about all these characteristics at the poker table is that they can be quite reflective of the way we operate in the world of work. So if we first of all look at, let's look at our loose aggressive player up here, the maniac, okay? Loose aggressive, plays lots of hands. This is the kind of personality at a table that allows decisions to ride all on one thing. They will just be, I've got a feeling and I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to go with it aggressively, and I'm going to bluff my way through this hand. By hook or by crook, I'm going to win this money. They can be reckless. They tend to be bullyish. They're always the first to want to act. They want to make their stand and put their money in and say, I'm the player, I'm in charge here, I'm the table captain. They tend not to make good judgment calls because they're driven by aggressiveness and bullishness, and they tend to be thrill seekers. So these are kind of people we refer to as table captains, and in the world of work, you would have come across these kind of people. They're the kind of people who are always making their point first, but they're not really considering things, and they're not taking in or listening to what could be said, to what could be heard, apart from what they want to hear and what they want to say. And then when they've got a decision in their mind, they go with it. Let's look at the other kind of players. There's the tight passive player, okay? Tight passive down here, okay? Tight passive players are the kind of people in the world who are kind of easily bullied. They're not fully involved. They are very scared of risk. They don't follow their gut much. They are very risk averse. And they tend to play poker in a way that they don't want to lose. They play not to lose rather than play to win. Again, we meet people like this in the world of work where they don't try and do anything positively to make kind of further themselves. They just tend to sit back and ride the wave. I'm not saying these are bad or good characteristics, but it's up to you what kind of player you want to be at the poker table and how you want to transfer those skill sets from poker into the world of work. They tend, also tight passive people tend to never kind of, they tend to be dreamers, and they tend not to act on things. So they know they're correct to play the game of poker tight, but they don't play aggressively enough. And so they end up always losing because they've played passively. You cannot win at poker playing passively. You are always looking to play aggressively, but tight. So this person has one of the right characteristics, which is playing tight. So that's good. We're playing tight. Being this bottom half here is good, but we want to be more across this side to the aggressive side. We want to be playing more hands and betting and raising with them. Let's look at the loose passive player, okay? Loose passive player. This is what we call the amateur. We've all been there. We've all started playing poker as a loose amateur, okay? We're eternally optimistic, tend to be quite curious, don't want to give up on anything, but never actively do anything to make that come true. Never letting go of an investment, ignoring all warnings that you're not winning, and tend to be inexperienced, okay? And again, we've all met these kind of people in the world of work. They tend to be younger, and that characteristic does change over time. The more experienced you become, the more tight you are with your selection of what you do, and the more aggressively you do it. And being aggressive isn't a bad characteristic in the world of poker. It can be very bad in the world of business or in the world of work. But if you're selectively aggressive and making your point clear and using the information that you've been given to make the right point, that's a good characteristic. And then we look at the player that we want to kind of aim to be playing poker, okay? So the tight aggressive player, which is down here in the bottom left, we play a lower selection of hands than the loose players because we select the right amount of hands and the right hands to play. And when we play them aggressively. We bet them and we raise them. We don't just sit there calling. We're not trying to trap people. Poker isn't. You can get to that kind of level of trapping players and be more advanced, but when you first start playing, try playing tight but aggressively, and you'll get far. So tight, aggressive players, very good at getting their point across because they're playing aggressively. They're letting you know, I'm winning this hand, I'm in charge, I'm the captain here now, but they're not doing it in every hand. They're just doing it in the hands when they've tightly selected, this is the hand I'm going to play and I know I'm going to win it in this situation. They tend to have good judgment, tight, aggressive players, good at getting their point across. They set out their stall and they break down when it's correct to do so, when it's correct to act. They're also, tight, aggressive players, are very good at managing their emotions. Now, the loose, aggressive player is a maniac, cannot manage his emotions, just always wants to be in every hand and wants to push all the players out of every pot and just goes with his gut only and doesn't use his brain enough. Emotionally, the loose passive player is an amateur, so they're kind of lost. They don't really know what's going on, and they tend not to enjoy it too much. And then the tight passive player is not good at managing their emotions because they played a very small selection of hands. They played them badly and passively, and as a result, lost some money and can't compete with the tight, aggressive players at the table, and they can't even compete with the loose, aggressive players. And when they compete with the loose, passive players, the loose, passive players got such a wide range of hands that they have no idea whether they're winning or not. So really, actually, it says here amateur, but tight and passive is almost just as bad as being loose and passive in some respects. So you can see how these different personalities, we've all met them in the workplace, and it's all about, in our next episode, it's going to be about applying these characteristics to how you want to work, especially in the world of business. There are a lot of parallels. There are a lot of loose, aggressive maniacs, poker players who have made a huge amount of money in the world of business by being a maniac, and they struck gold in the 1 in 10 times because they got lucky. The tight, aggressive players are the ones who tend to keep prospering and they tick along well and keep making money. They'll have bad days, but they'll have more good days than they have bad days. And then the loose, passive player will always be losing, and the tight, passive player will always be losing as well. But they all share similar characteristics. And it's all about deciding at the poker table what kind of player you want to be, and you want to be the tight, aggressive player. I hope this has helped. Next week we'll run through, again, those kind of characteristics and how it applies to work, but also we're going to run through some more example hands of how to play hands correctly, tightly and aggressively. So we'll see how you can play the same hand twice and it'd be a completely different situation because you're playing correctly. Hope that's been of help. Do check us out on Instagram, give us some love on Facebook and Twitter, that'd be great. Nice to catch up with you all again, and we'll see you again next Thursday for another episode. Cheers. Good night.